We may luck out today and see some thunder and lightning activity.
Very, very frightening.
No, not really.
Galileo, Figaro.
Dun. Figueroa. It's such an amazing piece.
It's okay. I do like Queen, though.
Pardon?
I do like Queen.
They've got a few pieces that I like a lot. But I was never a major fan. Although Freddie Mercury, my God, what an incredible voice.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The 18-year-old white man arrested for the mass shooting in Buffalo, New York last month is now looking at federal hate crime.
I'm glad my bird decided to stop screaming.
The Justice Department announced
Wasn't sure if it'd be picked up by the mic or not.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland says Denver picked the Tops supermarket in the zip code with the highest percentage of black people close enough to where he lived and spent months preparing his attack.
The affidavit alleges that the defendant wrote about his acquisition of firearms and other supplies for the attack and traveled to Tops on multiple occasions to sketch the interior of the store, count the number of black people present, and observe the presence of black security guards.
10 black people were killed. Garland says that at one point, Denver allegedly aimed his rifle at a white employee he wounded and apologized to him before he continued his attack. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death among children in the United States. Lawmakers cited the latest statistics from the CDC during a hearing today. Here's Windsor Johnson reports their meeting as a group of senators works to finalize a bipartisan bill that would strengthen gun safety.
Bipartisan bill. Watered down bill. It'll probably get watered down even more if it goes anywhere.
Oh yeah, it's way watered down. They need to just ban those damn assault. Any long rifle with semi-automatic, ban it. Can't have anything but a bolt action, baby.
Gun violence is traumatizing an entire generation of American kids. American kids now fear a shooting could happen in their school any day.
Corbin says statistics from the CDC show more than 4,300 babies, children, and teens.
I don't really see any use for anything more than a revolver at most for any kind of home defense.
Windsor Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
I heard this little girl this weekend at Pride Fest. We got rained out for the park, so we had to go to the LGBT center. A lot less room than a park, but there was a whole bunch of people in there, kind of crowded. And this little girl, I don't think she was older than 6. I heard her ask her father, "Could we get shot here?" It was like, what? You know, it was just absolutely heartbreaking to hear a little child actually ask that question in total seriousness. And now we have to answer yes with these goddamn Patriot Front bastards. Did you hear that they all bailed out by one person?
No, I didn't hear about that. I see we're live. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, apparently my mic was not working. Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So then I don't know if I got the disclaimer in there.
No, you didn't.
Well, I said it. It just didn't pick up. Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There will be strong language and adult themes. And likely a lot of fart jokes today.
Yes.
I'm above that kind of stuff. I'm sorry.
I'm not.
I figured if we're talking about winds, somebody is going to make fart jokes.
Yes, let's break some wind here. Let's see here. Global Wind Day, organized
Yep.
by Wind Europe around
Mark
the
Caesar
world.
already started with the fart jokes.
Heh. Observed by all UN members, started in June 15th, 1967, 55 years ago.
Yeah, and Mark Caesar, unfortunately, that is true. The latest statistics said that the leading cause of death for people between ages 5 and 19 is guns.
Yep, that's absolutely true.
Well, clearly, the leading cause of death overall is stupidity.
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
Why would I say that? Well, that's pretty much the stem of everything else that we're getting.
It does seem to come back to that one way or
Such a
another.
pretty view.
You know, a large number of those child deaths that push that statistic are suicides. Suicide by gun by a child.
You know, suicides and also home accidents, because another statistic is that if you have a gun in your house, you are far more likely to shoot a family member than an intruder.
Yeah, and then there's the child dying in the home from a bullet that came from outside from some drive-by.
Yep.
It's amazing how many kids get shot in the head randomly. It seemed like there was 3 or 4 every year back in Milwaukee.
Suicide, third leading cause of death among Americans and youth. I think that's by shooting too. I'm looking at this right. Rise of firearm suicide among youth America. Yeah, it's among shootings. So accident, homicide, suicide. Actually, I might just be more than just shootings because it also lists cancer and heart disease here. Yeah, right.
Hey, Perp, why don't you take me down from the big screen?
Okay. I just figured as long as you were showing scenery, it was good.
Well, yeah, go back to it all you want, but I just, hi, kitty.
It's pretty bad when, a pediatrician and they will say, oh, make sure you wear your seatbelt because car accidents are the number one cause of death for, teenagers. But then it's like, oh, nope, sorry, that's inaccurate. Now, firearms related deaths are the number one cause of death for teenagers. Car accidents are number 2.
Jeff.
A little levity is needed for a heavy topic.
I went through some gyrations today on Twitter. I had to think about it as I wrote the tweet, and I couched my words a lot because I know how triggering the whole thing is. But the topic became the patriotic front, sick bastards who, if any of you haven't heard yet, 31 of them got together with their full tactical gear, armed with blunt force weapons and some firearms in the back, and went to a pride fest specifically to cause a riot and beat the hell out of people. The FBI happened to hear about this from an informant, and they broke it up before it actually happened. And all 31 of them were bailed out of prison yesterday by one person.
Wow. I
By the
wonder
way,
who's
did you know
footing
that?
the bill for
Did
that.
you know that? Did you know that January 6th was funded by one person? So, anyways, my tweet, since it was about that, was basically said I no longer feel safe, and I think that I'm going to rearm myself. I used to have a gun, I sold it, but I think it's time to buy another one and to take some fresh training. And everybody might want to think about that.
I've never cared for the idea of having a gun in the house, but I get your point.
Well, I live alone. I'm not worried about that.
Well, I mean, just there's always the chance of accidents and that. And it's...
Yeah, but when
I
the
just,
chances of a hate crime are going up as high as they are, it's, you
Yeah.
know, which do you want? Like something you have a little more control over, which is your own accident or your own like user error, which if you do training and if you take all the proper safety precautions, it's less likely to happen, or something you have no control over, a random fucking bigot deciding they want to do you harm.
Yeah, like I said, I get the point. I won't argue with anyone who, you know, decides they want to have one.
I got a lovely a male goldfinch. About 8-9 feet away from me, eating on a flower with seeds.
No.
He's so beautiful. And here's his mama too with him. They're on a echinacea, purple coneflower.
Echinacea, that's a good plant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know it's a popular herbal thing. I know they say it's supposed to help boost your immunity and keep you from getting a cold, but let's just say I'm a little skeptical of the claims.
Oh,
Anytime somebody makes a claim about a plant that can disrupt and prevent a disease process, organic disease, bacterial, viral disease process, I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
it might might help keep your immune system going. That'll help, but it's not going to help with the virus itself directly.
Yep.
You're kind of like how taking vitamin C might keep you going a little bit more than, but it's not going to do anything to the actual virus.
Well, some of the herbal remedies may help like a specific symptom.
Yeah,
But,
that's
yeah, like Jenny says, none of them are going to stop a virus.
yeah.
Well, it's like willow bark was used for arthritis, but it's basically aspirin, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's
yeah,
where
that is
aspirin
aspirin.
comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not treating the disease; it's
Yep.
treating the symptom, and that a lot of plants are good, very useful for.
Well, I keep a bottle of peppermint spirits around. It's good for a stomach upset.
And purslane is great to help you poop.
Personally, am I growing?
There
any
are a
of
whole
that?
bunch of them. They're supposed to help you sleep. Unfortunately, none of those work on me.
Purslane is this little tiny succulent that is pretty much everywhere across the country.
Yeah, I know it's native around here. I just trying to remember if I have any growing yet.
Yeah, I would need a field guide to be able to identify them in the wild.
Well, once you know purslane, you'll never mistake it for anything else. Nothing else looks like it.
Somebody
All
see
right.
the thunderstorm coming. I love the sound of the rain and thunderstorms. Like, it's very soothing for me.
We got 2+ inches of rain in about 3-4 hours yesterday.
Actually, I just might have some of this stuff growing around my house.
I like it, Mark.
Yeah, Mark's coming out with some good ones today. Well, Mark and Jeff both had a couple of good ones.
Well, Aussies have a special relationship with poop and stuff like that. It's
Spearmint is a good anti-androgen. Okay, I don't know anything about that
show
one.
me the papers.
Well, and some of these things do have chemicals that, would help with what they claim. Although if you're just having it like in a tea, the amount you're getting is probably insignificant.
Yeah, it's like
in a lot of cases.
Bioestrogens that come out of plants. They're absolutely there, but the quantity is so small they're not going to affect you in any truly noticeable fashion.
Yeah.
Until you, and unless you're consuming them constantly all day, they're certainly not going to be like taking a pill.
Okay, looking at National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Has a list on echinacea here. It might slightly reduce your chance of catching a cold, but it's not going to shorten the length of a cold, it says.
So basic immune system booster.
Basically, yeah. There isn't enough evidence to show whether echinacea is helpful for other health conditions. So basically, it's probably overhyped.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Okay, Jenny, May did provide a link to a paper about the anti-androgen effects of spearmint. So I will send you the link on Twitter.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or May is hooked up with me on Twitter, so you can send it there.
I've already got
Holy
it.
shit, we're getting hail now.
That came on quick.
Don't walk outside unless you got a hard hat. Even then, probably not a good idea.
Mostly it's pea size, but there's a couple chunks coming down there, like an inch in diameter.
That'll give
Did you
you
see
touch.
anybody see the films from Mexico City?
No,
They had a hailstorm there. It left 8 inches of hail in the downtown area of Mexico City. Absolutely destroyed their ability to move around in cars. And they have no equipment to remove that. So just got to melt.
Yeah, I remember one time I was wound up in a hailstorm that they were getting close to the size of ping pong balls. And they were hard enough that they didn't break up when they hit the ground. So we wound up with a layer of them all across the lawn. Oh, Jeff, that's bad. A fart and a relationship have an important thing in common. If you have to force it, it's probably shit.
Not wrong, though.
We won't even go into the wet ones.
Oof.
Sorry, I had to move on location because it was getting too much hail. I'm kind of under a tree now.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, obviously you don't want fucking hail damage to your vehicle.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we're running into a shortage of the estradiol. So my doctor had to write a prescription for a substitute. What's this? Delestrogen.
Hope
So
it works
it's
for
another
you.
form of estradiol. But yeah, apparently the pharmacy just can't really get the stuff now. Supply chain issues.
Gotta love those supply chain issues.
Honestly, it's really shitty when you require medication, be it for, a chronic illness or, because genetics and, fucking other things just don't go your way.
Yeah. Well, I got my CBD oil in the other day.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that stuff seems to help with my arthritis and general feeling.
I mean, they did pass a medical marijuana in Florida a while back. I believe you can get a medical card now.
Yeah, it's kind of costly though, and it's pretty much all out of pocket.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. Insurance won't cover it because still federally it's not legal.
Yeah, I figure if I have to pay out of pocket, I'll just wait for it to become recreationally available.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So I've been keeping my eye on this Nikki Fried.
I quite like her, I voted for her a couple years back for agriculture. I think she's the agriculture secretary.
I think it was. I voted for her too.
Like I voted for her just because, she very much was, pro marijuana and, she's to the left of most of the people in our state legislature. So I'm like, you know what? That's good enough for me. Beggars can't be choosers right about now.
Well, she boasts as being the only candidate not taking money from the NRA.
Okay,
And
that's definitely
that's
a point
good
for
one.
her.
Yeah. Now you see your name on all the gas pumps around here because as part of her job making gas prices or well, not the prices, but making sure that the pumps are actually
weights and
charging the
measure
right
standard.
amount.
Yeah.
There you go.
She was
that's dispensing at the correct rate according to the meter.
Mm-hmm.
She's a lobbyist for the cannabis industry.
Oh.
Which is fine by me because
Yeah, that's fine.
honestly, I would much rather people use cannabis to fucking alcohol or other drugs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if she got the governor position, at least I'll pretty much guarantee legalizing it here.
Well, I mean, if the bill actually passes the state legislature.
Yeah, that would be the problem. You can't, even if you've got a good governor, you can't expect everything to get through the legislature.
Although a lot of the good stuff that happens in our state happens on direct ballot initiatives, and then the governor will do, his dickish things to essentially try to stop it from going into effect if the outcome is not the one they wanted. So like when we got medical marijuana passed, it was on a ballot initiative giving us a constitutional amendment legalizing medical marijuana, but then they tried to put in a bunch of like loopholes and restrictions and delay its implementation. Then when we passed the felons' right to vote, where in this state before, when we had Rick Scott, now he's a senator, but before he was governor, during his tenure, maybe a dozen or so people per year got in front of the committee to even have a hearing for whether they get their voting rights back after serving their time. And they saw very few people. And so most of the time, felons they lost their right to vote forever. And I don't agree with that. It's one thing if, you're a violent felon to lose your right to a firearm. I'm okay with that because obviously you've done a violence, like you've committed a violence, Whereas voting, I think that even if you are currently serving life in prison, you should still have the right to vote because you're still a citizen.
Yeah, I remember voting to give them their rights back.
But then they tried to weasel out of it. It's too broadly worded, and we don't like this, so we're going to weasel out and make sure that they have to pay all fines and fees and anything that we can think of to tack on there to keep them from voting.
It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but the state legislature and the governor basically tried to weasel out of that straightforwardness. That's just how it works, and
Yep.
it sucks.
Indeed, it does.
Rather depressing.
Serve your time. You're done when serving your time. Okay, you can vote again.
Yeah, it should be that simple. In a lot of states, it is that simple. It's once you're released, you're done. You've served your time.
Well, the Republicans don't like freedom. You can do a ballot initiative that says if the state does not allow somebody to vote because of a conviction, then they shouldn't have to pay any taxes.
That's not bad.
Taxation without representation. Isn't that the whole reason we broke away from England? Like,
Yep.
Even people in prison pay taxes.
Speaking about taxes, I kind of wish property taxes is just a one-time pay.
Yeah, but those property taxes are what pay for the schools around you, which I think is a really shitty system because then it means the rich neighborhoods have good funded schools or well-funded schools and poor neighborhoods don't.
Then obviously we need a different way of paying for it.
Yes, no, it is very unequal, but it's by design because then the wealthy people who have the power, their schools are funded so they don't care. And if it keeps, the poorer people down, then all the better.
Yep, that's the whole point of it. It's specifically set up so that, the upper class people that can make sure their kids can get a good education, but the working class people, they just don't care. It might be a problem if the working class got to be too intelligent.
Oh, it would be. I'm all for, I don't care if property taxes go towards education. That's fine. However, I think it should be more going towards a pool where it is split evenly among all the schools. And then there's more supplemental funds put in there as well so that all the schools are well and equally funded.
I agree. It should go into a pool for the entire state and then should just be distributed to be the same amount of money per student at every school.
And it should be readjusted every year, with inflation and cost of things.
They'll refigure your property taxes every year. They can refigure that.
Yeah, and so basically, if for a child to have a proper education, say it costs, I don't know, $10,000 a year, then you figure out whatever it is for the top tier education and whatever that dollar figure is, then each student gets that regardless of test scores, regardless of where they live, giving every student a chance to actually get ahead.
Oh, that makes too much sense, though.
Well, we also have to keep in mind that the Republicans don't want to just give everybody in public education a bad education. They want to end the public schools in favor of academies and that kind of stuff because it's their buddies who own them and make profit off of them.
Well, that's why they're such a fan of private prisons, too.
So they are defunding education, public education, and giving the money to the private concerns.
Yep.
Hey, little baby Yoda, shaker cup.
They've been working for decades to try and dismantle it.
We already run out of things to talk about.
Oh, absolutely not. Sorry, I was talking to my son.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
he's
actually
got a
trying to
Lego
update
creation.
of it. Although,
Come
quite
here if you wanna
honestly,
show it off.
yeah, I'm really dragging here. I thought it beeped that someone else had entered.
He made a little like scooper crane out of Technic pieces.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it is really cute. It's got wheels and it articulates.
So your camera's frozen.
Weird.
Yep, you're frozen. I'm just seeing a tube. There you are. Ah, it's
That's
Randall.
that-
weird. But
Say
yeah,
that
no.
again. Bring her back up.
StreamYard is a little
There you
quirky at times.
So it's got wheels and little scoop.
And a grabber.
It's a scooper crane, is what he
Cool.
called it.
Yep.
He's quite creative.
Oh, absolutely. He loves making his little Lego creations.
Yeah.
Purple loves it. Everybody said you did a really good job.
I saw this very cool TikTok video of an autistic child that was described in the video. It's an autistic child, looked somewhere between 5 and 8, who could write in chalk on the sidewalk is what he was doing. Every font you can imagine. He would write out the word Helvetica and it looked just like Helvetica. He'd write out Comic Sans and it looked just like Comic Sans.
That's cool.
It was amazing.
My son's really good with dates. Like, I think the farthest away I was able to get was my birthday 7 years from now. And he was able to tell me which day of the week it was.
That seems to be a fairly common one.
It is quite a skill, though, if you can, figure which day of the week a specific date is several years ahead.
Yeah.
There's kind of a formula for figuring that out.
Yeah, once you get that formula down, you can pretty much work it out.
Yeah,
I figured there must be, but I never learned what it was.
the calendar repeats every 11 years, is it?
I'm not sure.
And if you remember when, which day a given month starts, from there you can just figure out whatever you want.
11 sounds right, but I would have to look it up to be sure.
So after asking across multiple platforms and getting no answer, somebody finally directed me to a about 35-minute video when I asked, "What do you mean by groomer?" And so far, I'm unimpressed.
Yeah. I again, another Republicans contradicting themselves. That they were calling all the teachers groomers, and that we can't trust them with our children. And then at the same time, they're saying that they should require all teachers to be armed to protect the students. Which one is it?
Both.
That sounds like psychological projection on their part.
The whole groomer thing, I really think is.
I think guns in the hands of teachers in a classroom are the dumbest fucking idea you can imagine.
Oh yeah. It's a horrible idea, because with 30 kids in the room, and the teacher is not going to be keeping track of where the gun is every second, and at some point one of the students is going to pick it up.
Unless it's on the teacher's person, but then that runs other risks,
Yeah.
During a dare class, one of my friends way back in the day, he actually managed to get the police officer's gun off of him.
The biggest risk is if you're a teacher and you got it on hanging on your belt, and the shooter walks in, shooter sees it, you're the first target.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yay, now they have another weapon they can use to...
Well, chances
Or when
are,
the cops come in and they see 10 people with guns, they'll just take them all out because they can't tell who's a teacher and who's the shooter.
Yeah.
Mhm. Not to mention if the shooter, I mean, the Uvalde case, is one thing where he just happened to be a nearby school, like he didn't go there, But imagine, like a Columbine situation where then the teachers might have to kill a student that was their student, And that's a whole other level of psychological fuckwit, where it's gonna fuck with them.
You know, Kitty, what you were saying earlier about how the funding should be split around is actually what we do here in BC, Canada, and so the property taxes are a big part of what goes into funding the schools here, and then all the elementary schools and high schools and middle schools for the municipalities that split it into three like that. They get equal distribution based on number of students and a tiny bit on if there's some special need for the school. It has a French immersion program or it's something special about the land, but generally it's all focused on that. So it doesn't really matter if you're in a rich or poor neighborhood. The funding is equalized throughout. And that's because
Canada's just better than us in pretty much every way.
Well, no, there's ways that I think the US is better as well. I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I'm focused on the education thing. But I think there's you've got a large population. You've got a lot of influence economically in the world. There's all kinds of things like that. But I think this is a good model. So what you're thinking is an idea that actually works, is my point. So I think your idea is the right idea based on what I've seen.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's what you had up there in Canada, but
Yeah.
it just seems like a rather common sense approach.
Yeah.
Well, that explains why we're not doing that.
And we have equality in our constitution, so it is guaranteed to everybody. And since government service,
and that really is the thing in the U.S. is that they don't really want equality. They want a class system. They want everything to be based on how much money you have.
You mean like the caste system in India?
Yep.
Yikes. I'm very saddened, though, to hear about all this. It's almost like the way people are talking about it. It's almost like it's a normal occurrence that there are guns in schools.
It is.
It's so sad.
I mean, even now, it's a normal occurrence, and you've got resource officers, which, usually end up causing more problems for the kids than they, solve as far as stopping school shootings. But just recently, I forget which state it was, they passed a thing that would cut down and make it easier for teachers to carry, whereas they had to have had 400 or 700 hours of training. Now it's 24 hours.
Wow.
And that's just not going to end well.
Well, that's a recipe for a disaster. Multiple disasters.
Well, okay, and
we just passed a law here a couple of weeks ago, within the last few weeks, to really restrict gun ownership here in Canada. We already are pretty restrictive, but now it's even more restrictive. And I don't have a problem with this, but I noticed that the right wing, politically aligned people are just furious about it.
okay, and if they're expecting the teachers to all have guns, who's paying for these guns? I mean, they don't give the teachers enough to pay for paper and pencils.
Well, imagine this scenario. Teachers are all armed. And then some parents decide they want their kids to be armed because they think the teachers are too left-wing for their liking.
Yeah, I can see that going that way.
It needs to go in the other direction.
Yeah, more guns. We've tried the more guns approach. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate guns. I enjoy going to the shooting range. I own a gun. I have a handgun. I don't have an arsenal. I have one. And that, stays locked away when not in use. because common sense, but regardless,
My
I
wife
don't demonize guns. There's just way too
Yeah.
many of them in this country, and it's very easy to get one. There was
Yeah.
the video a few years back, a 14-year-old boy. He goes and they were doing like a
Well, and there is no purpose for an automatic weapon. A civilian has nothing to use that for because it is specifically made for an environment where you have dozens of targets.
So yeah, there's my wife and I, when we visited Arizona a long time ago, within the last 20 years,
Can you guys see me?
Yes.
our friend took us to the shooting range. It was actually a really nice experience. We enjoyed it a lot, and but it's and I wouldn't mind doing that here as a hobby. I got higher priorities, but same thing. I think the problem is with the people who are misusing them. And Mark, we do have Mark's commenting from the chat here. Thanks for showcasing Mark Caesar's comment. He's asking, I hear that even though there are heaps of gun owners and guns in Canada, people there use them appropriately, and they are not a huge problem. There are people who this is all true, but there has been instances on the rise of misuse of guns, both legal and illegal guns, like licensed and unlicensed. So registered and unregistered, I guess, are the terms I'm looking for here. And so for somebody to say it's only unregistered guns that are a problem, it's not true. But there are, we have been gradually noticing a bit of an increase. And I think that's a big part of the reason why this new legislation's come in to put more restrictions on it, because we want to stop it. And if you look at countries like New Zealand and Australia and others, the amount of gun crimes involving guns that they deal with there is very low. And we're a bit higher than they are significantly, and we really want to bring that down too. It's not a huge problem, but we're trying to make sure it doesn't become a huge problem.
Randolph, don't they require in Canada that you register the gun and then you hand it over to the police or some other agency and they store it away for you until you need it?
No.
Or wish to go hunting or something?
No, that's not a requirement. You're responsible for the storage of it.
Oh, okay.
First, you have to be licensed to be able to own a gun, and then you have to register all the guns that you own. And then when you transport them, you have to report your route ahead of time to the RCMP, our federal police force, part of the government, and indicate the main route you're going to take or the alternate routes you might take along the way if something happens on one of the main routes. Now, if you deviate from those routes and you're caught with them, you will lose your gun and probably won't get it back. That's it.
Okay,
we have
now
no
see,
tolerance for it here.
I could never do that. If I'm driving, the chance of me actually staying on the planned route is remote at best.
Yeah, you can define a couple of alternative routes if you want, but you have to tell them what day you're going to be traveling. You don't have to do the time, but you tell them what day, and you have to tell what the routes are, and that's what dates. So that way you're not out of the area that you're planning. So they don't disapprove it or anything like that, but you have to document it beforehand.
Is that for all, or is that just for like restricted? Because I know you have different levels of gun license in Canada.
So when it comes to rural areas and farming and whatnot, there are the long guns. It's a little more lax. It's but if they're taking them out and around, then there's like if they're going to go somewhere to a gun show or something, they do have to still notify the police, is my understanding. And people who are, I find a lot of Americans who are very pro-gun find this to be unreasonably restrictive. I don't think it is. I think it's good. I saw somebody walking through a parking lot one day a number of years ago. He was all dressed in black. He didn't look like a police officer because police officers have all kinds of gear with them normally. And he had a gun on his side. He was walking towards a swimming pool where it's a family thing. Why is this guy here? So, of course, I called the police to let them know, and they showed up in less than 30 seconds, and they ended up talking to the guy, and it turns out he was with one of the armored car services, and so they informed him that and let him off on a warning and said, you can't carry that around. You have to leave that in the truck with your partner if you're leaving the truck. He was just going in to use the washer, but it's very strict like that. So if he ever does that again, he's going to be losing his right to carry his license to carry a firearm then, and he could lose his job over it. But this has to be very serious. Like, why is this guy walking around by himself to the pool, where there's a bunch of kids just to use the washroom? But I don't know what his intentions are. So yeah, it's unusual that you see something like this. So these kind of instances are very rare, but once in a while, stuff like that gets reported, and the police come and they deal with it right away.
Around here, some people call that grocery shopping.
I know it's what a contrast. That's why I'm mentioning this, because it's a very different attitude.
I mean, like I said before, I'm not anti-gun, but going back to what I was saying, before my mic got disconnected, baby, honey, I'm on a stream. Can you be a little bit quieter, please? Thank you. So they had gotten this kid, he was 14, and they took him out of school and brought him around to a bunch of different shops. They had him try to buy scratch off like lottery tickets, which you got to be 18 for, cigarettes, alcohol, and they had him try to buy all these things, and he got turned away. Then they brought him to a gun show, and this 14-year-old kid walked away with a rifle in under 5 minutes. They're just like, yeah, cool, there you go, and they sold it to him.
Yeah, there are gun show
I saw
loopholes.
the video with that.
Well, I'm glad he wasn't able to get cigarettes.
I know, something that'll kill you after 20 years, much more dangerous than something that can kill you in fucking 2 seconds. But honestly, I mean, if I lived in Canada, I wouldn't care that I couldn't own a gun. I mean, I might even buy a rifle, and go out hunting, because I've always wanted to go hunting. But then I can also go hunting with a bow and arrow, which I enjoy archery. So,
that's fine here. You could also go to the shooting range, and if you don't have your own gun, they'll rent one to you.
Yeah, exactly. So I can still scratch that itch, like I wouldn't feel the need to own a gun in Canada like I do here,
I got a deal for you. You come move here. I'll come to the shooting range with you once in a while, and you can teach me about guns.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
I used to go to the shooting range with my dad way back in the day.
My wife will want to come.
That's actually a pretty good shot.
Hey, if I could work it out, I would definitely move up there, but I just, don't see the logistics working, and I would have some issues with the, getting the visa or whatever.
That's so good.
Well, maybe not, because with the way things are going here, you might actually be able to apply for asylum as a trans woman, like fleeing the United States. You might.
Somebody had mentioned that
refugee status.
Would be a different approach.
That would be me.
The two most
international law about refugee status kind of talks about the person crossing the border and then begging for asylum.
So the two
risking, of course, the chance that they would be turned down and sent back.
The two regions here in Canada that are the most LGBTQ plus friendly and trans friendly and all this are the Greater Vancouver area that I'm in, and then Toronto and surrounding areas, which is in Ontario, which is kind of back east. So here I'm in the west, in British Columbia, and the Pride parades. We bring our kids to the Pride parade since as long as they ran here, as they were like 2 or 3 years old. It's when we started bringing them. Great experience for kids, actually.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I brought my kids to the Minneapolis Pride.
Although they didn't really have them in the streets the last couple of years because of the pandemic. I'm hoping that'll come back because it's so much fun to go to those.
Yeah, but it's kind of terrifying thought now, because honestly, my son was really little and had a habit of like just kind of wandering off a bit. So I didn't take him out to crowds much. And like I was planning on maybe taking him to Pride this year, but with the rise in fucking crazy people going and accosting LGBT people, it doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, kind of seems like it was a bad time for me to be coming out, but since it's still not obvious for me, I haven't really come out publicly yet.
Well, I would say that if you're at a Pride Fest and the bad guys are going to raid it and beat the hell out of everybody or shoot everybody, doesn't matter what you are or what you're doing. If you're in the line of fire,
yeah.
you're going to take it.
Oh yeah,
Oh, definitely.
That
In
makes
that,
sense.
yeah, in that instance, they're not going to be particular. Pretty much
Yep.
anyone who's not wearing their armband is going to be a target.
Did you all hear about that one crazy punk driving around the country? He wants to visit every Target in the country and harass them for having LGBT support.
Yeah, again, I saw a clip of that video.
Yeah, and then he's broadcasting it on video on the internet.
Now the fact
And-
that there's one person doing that,
And so he's giving people warning what his path is, and the police departments are meeting him there and saying, "Get out of here."
good. Now the fact that there's one person who's seriously going and taking action there leaves me wondering how many people feel like they want to do that and haven't yet.
Oh, it's more than just one person. Like 30 people were just arrested, and they were in full tactical gear headed towards a Pride event. Like
There you
Jenny was
go.
talking about it earlier.
Apparently, the big issue that has the right up in arms is Christina Aguilera dancing around in a Pride parade thing in a Hulk outfit and a big green strap on that she apparently jerks off on stage.
Yeah, there are
And
some
reason-
performances I would rather they didn't do in public.
And apparently, the reason why that they're all up in arms about this is the LA Pride lists itself as all ages. So all those kids in the audience, I have actually no idea if there actually were any kids at this particular show. I'm told that they were. I don't know.
If they're young kids, they probably won't even realize what's going on. It's like when we brought our young kids to the Pride Parade, and there was a woman dressed up as a cat, all in leather, with a group of people who are dressed up doing bondage and dressed up as various animals, mostly dogs and cats. And she came and gave our daughter a little, just a ball, that squishy foam ball. And what she saw was a cat, or a woman dressed up as a cat gave me a ball. She didn't notice any of the other kind of stuff. And,
Yeah, that's true.
the woman gave our kids something that was not shaped like genitalia that she was giving to the adults. So, people are being decent at these places, in my opinion. I have no worries with all of this.
Yeah, kind of like-
Well, but then there are reports of people who are walking down the street in their leather and BDSM gear and dragging someone along on their hands and knees with a collar and leash.
Oh yeah, we saw that too.
I mean,
That we saw
those
quite a
things
bit of
do
that.
happen.
There's actually at the Pride parades here. I lost track of how many of those I saw. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
I don't
we
care if
I saw Dominatrix. She had 5 guys walking along like dogs on leashes, and she's the one pulling all 5 of them. It's like wow. And she was on. It must have been like 12-inch high heels or something. They're putting on quite a show. It's really really.
I don't care if people do that.
Yep.
But
long
I
as it's
think
all
people are
consensual.
being very immature and willfully ignorant if they don't think that sort of thing hurts our cause. The bad guys see that, and that's all they see. They
That's
don't
true.
see the 150,000 other people who are perfectly normal just happen to be gay.
Yeah.
They only see the outlandish stuff,
Yeah,
and
that's-
that's where they get their definition of who we are.
So
In
how do
fact,
we?
in fact,
How do we temper this with freedom of
Well,
expression?
I've even heard somebody explicitly tell me, "Oh, Pride parades are just an excuse for an orgy."
Well, how do we temper it? We don't. We explain to people the impression they're giving to the bad guys and hope that they do the right thing.
Yeah.
But here's the
Okay,
thing:
now-
there is, a whole history of, BDSM. in the community, like especially during, you know, the AIDS crisis, that's where you had the rise in leather daddies in the gay community, because it was an outlet that didn't require an exchange of bodily fluids. And I mean, I don't think that, you know, the community should have to temper itself for others. Now, I think that, you know, there's a bit of a gray area. You can, you know, if you're going to have like hardcore BDSM like demonstrations and such, have that in an 18 plus area. That's fine. But
Yeah,
if it's
or
just
lewd.
somebody wearing leather and like walking on their hands and knees, so what? Like that is like really tame, and it's not inherently sexual, you know?
I don't know if I'd
Kitty,
call that tame,
Kitty,
but I think it's not crazy. Yeah,
I completely agree with your point, no doubt.
it's not
You know,
extreme.
both
I
you and
wouldn't
I,
call it tame though.
excuse me, Randolph.
It's okay.
Kitty, both you and I are in the community, you know, and we're in agreement on this. However, the community is not at the issue. The issue is what the public perceives us as, how they react to it, and what's happening today is how they react to it. They get together with 31 people and go to beat up gay people. They carry arms and are ready to shoot gay people. They track them down on the street and beat them up.
I don't think that kink at Pride is the reason they're doing that. I think the reason they're doing that is because you have your Tucker Carlsons and, you know, the fucking, you know, that one TikTok channel that was going off on all the pink-haired teachers, you know, grooming kids. Like, it's the fact that they're saying, you know, that it's don't say gay kind of thing, where it's like, oh, well, just talking about, you know, the fact that there's more than two genders, or that same-sex people, you know, attracted people exist, is grooming children. And that's where they're getting the think of the children, because these types of people would never go to a pride parade anyway, other than to do harm.
And what
And
about the preacher? I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
don't think we should have to make ourselves smaller and cut out a part of our history, you know, just to appease bigots, when I don't think it's the kink at Pride that's the issue. It's all the talk around the don't say gay and talking about sex and you know, sexual preference and all that is grooming kids inherently.
Once again, I agree, but we're at a point now where it's a question of life and death, not principle. What about that preacher who out this weekend gave his church a sermon and explained how every gay person should be put up against the wall and shot in the back of the head?
No,
because that's what God wants.
That was happening even before there was talk about, you know, in the news about, you know, kink at Pride.
But it's happening almost on a frequent daily basis now.
But
it used to be maybe one a month, maybe one a year. Now it's every day.
It seems to me the correlation
every
is
day to
more
me.
with talking about like them going after, you know, the schools, and with all the talk that you have seen online about how teachers are grooming children, like LGBTQIA plus teachers are grooming kids, and talking about that. That is the main difference. That is what has happened most recently. And we cannot control what Fox News and the others are going to say. And, you know, even if they were to stop having any kink at all at Pride, you just completely ignore the leather daddies, and, you know, you force the people in the community that are in the BDSM lifestyle back into the closet. Like, they have to hide it. They're not allowed to celebrate it. Like, Pride is supposed to be about us. It's supposed to be about our community, not about making other people feel comfortable. Because if we wanted to just focus on making other people feel comfortable or for safety, then people would stay in the closet, or they'd go back in the closet.
My personal feeling is if that I was into that stuff and I was parading around on the street and getting screamed and yelled at by a bunch of conservatives with guns, and some of my friends were killed, I would feel a certain amount of responsibility for it. And I don't want to feel that. And so I as my individual choice, will try to respect their insanity, I guess is the best word for me to use. just because it will prevent deaths of my friends and family.
But where do you draw the line? What if it's like, oh, well, just trans women existing? You know, would you
It,
go back in the closet? What do you do then? Like,
I may have to. I may have to leave the country to save my ass. And if I
and
have
that's
to,
what
I
I'm
will.
saying. Like, why should we bow to bigots?
Because the reality is that the bigots have more power than we do, and they can wipe us out like bugs.
I don't believe there are more bigots than there are
Oh,
non-bigots.
They outnumber us 20-1 at least.
Oh,
I'm
that's
not so
horrible.
sure about
30%,
that.
30% of the voting population absolutely believes and agrees with Donald Trump and everything that extremist right-wing party says. And we're part of the death of us is part of that.
I mean, it's closer to more like 2025 because only about half the country votes, and he got less than half the votes. And a lot
Okay.
of the people that voted for him, well, there was a good portion of people, I can't say a lot, that voted just because they vote Republican no matter what. Even if, they didn't agree with Donald Trump, it was better than having a Democrat. I don't believe that all of the Republicans, or all the people that vote Republican are bigots. I think a lot of people just don't pay attention to politics, and when it comes time, they have their tribe and they just vote down ticket, for Republicans. Now, there are a lot of bigots in the Republican Party. Don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing that. But I know Republicans in my own life that they are not bigots. They're not like cross burners. They're not like, really, they don't care one way or another about our community, but they, for tax reasons or because, they are, pro-military and they think that the Republicans are better for veterans. They're not, but they believe that. Like even my own dad believes that the Republicans are the ones that look out for veterans.
Okay, why do they do that? Why do they do that?
What do you mean?
They do that because they're willing to just go along to get along. It's a natural human behavior, and they are doing it broadly in the right wing these days.
Mhm.
They're not questioning anything. They're just accepting what the leadership tells them, regardless how true it is or not.
Do you think the NRA might have some influence in the veteran communities, though, too?
Yes.
And I don't care about them. I just don't care.
Well,
They're not the issue.
They promote Republican ideals, though.
Yeah, but they're one small player compared to the mass of voters, and I'm not concerned about them.
Most
and
of the
their
voters in America
values.
don't pay attention. Like they're not politics nerds. They're not following things. They might watch the news, but that's not really going to inform you because all of the mainstream media has their own particular bias and slant, and they cover the topics that they want to cover, and they cover them in their own way. And as far as people that actually go and look up the bills and see who's voting for them, like looking at 538 and all the other platforms to allow that, there aren't very many political nerds in the country. Most people, they only pay attention to politics like cursorily, it's just whatever they hear on the news, plus maybe around election time they might think about it, but other than that, they're not engaged in the political process.
That's my exact point. They will be unengaged. They will go to the poll and they will vote Republican.
Yeah,
because dictatorships come from good people who do nothing.
I don't know.
Well, and the biggest problem is that most people will get all of their news from a single source. So whatever the slant of that single news source is pretty much going to decide who they vote for.
Washington, D.C. on the Gallup poll, Americans' overall ideological views were about the same in 2020 as of 2019, with 36% on average identifying as conservative, 35% as moderate, and 25% as liberal. That's probably still about right in 2 years.
Although the people that say they're moderates, like if you go issue by issue, most of them are actually much more liberal. Like the Overton window is
Yeah, that's
just
true.
completely skewed in this country. And when you're going issue by issue, a person might say that, oh, yeah, I'm a conservative. But then when you actually look at what they support a living wage, they support universal health care, they support all these other things. And it's like, how are you a conservative
Yeah.
if you support
Yeah.
these things?
Well,
In
the
fact,
problem is that they will actually support these things, but when it comes to the actual election, they vote on a single issue. And it's usually some bullshit emotional thing that has no effect on their life.
Yeah.
as sort of like actually I have two examples like the social democracy. I asked who supports that. Then it was a group with a lot of conservatives. Then a little bit later I asked all right, who would support workers having a say in the jobs they work at, which is basically social democracy. And they actually, a lot of them who said no, they would not support social democracy, actually said they would support that or would support that with caveats.
Yeah, it's like the idiot out in the Trump rally that's holding a sign that says "Keep the government out of my Medicare."
Or another example, or
Yeah.
the other example I have is my grandmother. She was a single issue voter. She would only vote for anyone who was against abortion. Yet when you actually talk to her face to face on what other issues she was for, she was actually quite liberal. So that's weird things get skewed right there.
Yeah, the conservatives used to not care about abortion. It was back, they just considered it, a medical procedure, and it was just a necessary thing. But then once they realized they were losing the civil rights war, they had to hitch their horse to a different wagon, so to speak. And the one they chose was abortion. Because they doctrine for the Southern Baptists was that life began at first breath. So as long as the abortion was occurring before the child was born, it was not considered ending a life. But they tweaked the dogma after.
Why is it that no matter what the subject, the Republicans will go back to, won't someone think of the children? And the only time they won't say that is after a school shooting.
Yeah.
It's too soon to think of the children, though, after a school shooting.
They're also, like, even on the other issues, like, they're inconsistent with it. Like, case in point, vaping. They have pushed to ban vaping, to ban flavorings. There's a bunch of new restrictions that came out that even led to my sister losing her job because the place that she worked at shut down because of like the red tape and everything. Where they had to submit their paperwork to the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and Bureau, and they submitted it, but then the ATF just sat on it for 8 months. So they couldn't order anything new because they didn't have the license to order the new stuff that they needed. So then they just ended up losing their whole customer base and the business had to shut down. And, they're all think of the children, like candy flavored flavorings in e-cigarettes are for targeting children. But yet they never raise a peep about the fact that you can go buy birthday cake or churro vodka, that you can buy cotton candy vodka. It's like those candy flavorings, are those meant to market to children or do adults just happen to like them?
Well, clearly adults don't like anything sweet.
This coming from somebody like, me personally, like all I vape are fruit flavors. I can't stand like anything that's not super fucking fruity.
Well, unfortunately, I was unable to find those candies that you showed last last time we were on stream. But I did find these things, though. I think it's Reasons or Ricins. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. But they were
Yeah, the
basically-
reasons, those are pretty good.
Yeah, those Reasons. I was able to find those. So I just finished off the bag yesterday.
Yeah, those are yummy.
I like
Hey,
sweet.
Robert.
Oh, Kitty, I just thought of something. If you do come here to Canada and we go to the gun range regularly, we could start a YouTube show called Blondes with Guns.
Yes. That'd be great.
That'd be funny.
Honestly, if I could, I would absolutely move to Canada, but it's not just me I need to think of, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got family and
My whole family's here. My son, like, I don't think my son would handle even us moving out of state, let alone moving, you know, to a different country, because he's just so used to seeing my family, you know, regularly.
Yeah, people with autism don't tend to handle change very well.
No.
Yeah. With me, you know, it's the whole issue of basically I'm living on a disability pension at this point, so you know that wouldn't be transferable, and I really think my body's too beat up to really, you know, do the kind of work that I used to do anymore.
Yeah. I have a friend who's studying to become a notary public, which is not a lawyer, but somebody who can sign and validate contracts and all that sort of thing. He says, like, in the classes he's taking, he was just telling me last week that they're going over ethics and issues like that. And one of the things coming up is Dr. Morgenthaler, who is very important in Canadian history for making sure that abortion is not illegal anymore. And he caused a lot of advancement here, which was great. There's and it's interesting that it's coming up in these classes. So I was just talking with my friend this morning about it. It had an interesting conversation. He's in agreement that it should be a freedom that's protected as well. But it's interesting that there's some people in the class who are thinking that abortion is a completely unethical thing. It's sad that there's many people that have these mindsets. So earlier, Jenny, what you were saying about people getting impressions that are not helpful to the cause when they're looking at the pride parades is a perfectly valid point, and I think I think that's one thing that needs to really happen is improvement in education for the general public. And, you know, the attempts to bring this kind of education into schools has been fraught with all kinds of controversy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mark, Jenny and I are already acclimated to it. Minnesota's colder than most of Canada.
Actually, Mark, he's saying he'd love to go to Canada, except it's really cold here. More up north it is, and here in BC, the weather's pretty moderate most of the year round. We get a short winter usually, and then after that, it's fine again. So
I can't handle cold. I can't handle cold at all.
Randolph, to go back onto the subject we were talking about, I just want to clear to people that when I talk about this with the Pride Fests and all and discretion, I'm talking about only personal choice. I don't think there should be any organizers of Pride Fests or parades that make rules about that. I just think that each of us should individually take a look and understand the position and attitude of the opposition and how we influence them.
I do kind of understand the whole idea here. I mean, if the point is to try and show LGBT as, you know, we're just there's normal people and so forth, with walking around in skin tight leather or BDSM outfits, probably is not going to do that.
Well, it depends on whether a person considers that to be normal, and
a lot of it comes to the question of where do you draw the line,
and it's a subjective thing, right? So the problem is you've got these especially a lot of religious people who are very extremely religious, have a very black and white view on what qualifies as moral and immoral, and it all goes back to their
Yep.
ancient doctrine written 2,000 years ago, and it has no insight on our current times, but somehow they think it does, and that's where the problems are. I think a lot of it's coming from.
Well, it's also the manipulation they do of the Bible. You know, the Romans. It is basically Paul's letter to the Romans.
Oh, okay.
And there's some passages in Romans that are used to justify killing gay people.
Yeah.
Under one interpretation, but if you look at the original writing and what it really was saying, it's talking about not to exterminate these people, but to understand that if you lose your belief and if you move in this direction, God is going to put you aside and not be concerned about you anymore. Nobody's going to kill anybody, but I'm God and I'm not going to be concerned about you anymore because you're not concerned about me. So bye.
They've got this big scary threat of going to hell if you don't follow God's orders. Shouldn't that be enough? Why do people feel that they need to go all Karen on the world and try to enforce that now? Do they not think the afterlife will be punishment enough?
Christians are completely bent on having everybody agree with them all the time and only one religion.
Yeah,
just like the Islamics.
Yeah, and some of them even say once everybody agrees, then there'll be world peace. And we're not even seeing evidence of that when there's a whole country that's trying to follow one religion. People inside are still fighting with each other.
Christians can't even agree with themselves.
Yeah.
That's because the government is trying to force
which
everyone to
doctrine
follow
is
the
the
same
correct one,
religion,
you know?
and perform the same rituals, but the government can't control what people actually believe. You know, so people can do the theatrical stuff. They can do all the window dressing.
I'm going to try reloading real quick.
But it's not going to actually change what their religion is.
We can hear you, Kitty. Okay. Yeah, and like we see with the Islamic religion, they have fasting incorporated into it. I suspect that the people who came up with that originally probably knew that when people are hungry, it's easier to convince them of things. So when these Muslims are fasting and they're hungry and they're reading that doctrine and all this stuff, they're brainwashing themselves. Like it's pretty interesting method that they use to keep people convinced and on the path that they want them on.
I'd have to look into that, see if that's really a reason why or not.
I suspect they probably notice that because when people are starved, they don't have enough food. They seem to be. I was reading somewhere that they're under some philosophy research. They were saying, sorry, not philosophy, psychology research. They're saying that when people are not comfortable, they'll more likely be more malleable to change.
Yeah, when people are uncomfortable, they tend to be more malleable to.
And hunger is a great discomfort, and interrogation tactics from the Reed technique in particular, which is an evil system, uses this, exploits these kinds of things too.
But Ramadan is only one day a year, isn't it?
No,
I was talking about the fasting thing. I thought they go on for like a month or something.
Yeah, it runs for a month. And
it's a month.
Basically, the fasting is that they're not supposed to eat during daylight hours.
Oh, okay.
And then they minimize
intermittent fasting diets, which is what I'm on right now. I guess I'm Islamic.
Hello, Clockwork Rex. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody?
Okay,
Good.
I'm glad we got that worked out for you to get in here.
Oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's my tablet or something. I don't know.
I'm not very good with Discord, so anything beyond the most basics, I don't know what I'm supposed to be clicking on, and I get it confused.
Well, fair enough. Anybody who wants to join my Discord can go ahead. We don't do much in there.
So basically, like every other Discord.
Well, yeah, we used to play Dungeons and Dragons, but that all fell off. So, yeah.
Honestly, the only reason I'm on Discord at all is to get the links for the Shills shows.
Fair enough.
You know, if you're in the Canadian Atheists Discord, you can post. We have a promote content channel there. Feel free to promote all your videos in there as you bring them up, and the scheduled ones and all that. Feel free. Maybe if more people.
Yeah, you can promote whatever you want in my Discord.
There you go.
Hey, you guys, it's getting starting to get really fucking hot here because the sun is coming out. So I'm gonna run home and get into the air conditioning. So I'll be offline for a little while.
Yeah,
Well,
you
there's a
take care of
Jerry Sunny
yourself.
spot.
Yeah.
Take care, Jenny. Great talking with you
Yeah.
again.
Don't want you
Be
to get
careful, doll.
overheated.
Heat stroke's a bitch, so look out for yourself.
I've had heat stroke before. It's not fun.
86 here and feels like 96. So, yeah, take care of yourself.
I refuse to go outside in the summer months if I can avoid it.
Oh,
Let's see here.
I had to take the trash to the road and I had to get the mail, and that's all the outside I'm doing today.
Currently, it's 89 degrees Fahrenheit here with a high of 91 and light rain.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like you and I aren't too far apart.
Yeah, we're supposed to get rain here, but I ain't seen none yet.
I've gotten a lot lately this past week.
Oh,
Okay,
yesterday.
Garden's
and the day
happy.
before, yeah,
Oh yeah,
a lot of rain.
Why are we in
But
completely
today-
different states and still have the same forecast?
Conspiracy, Illuminati, George Soros. Like, I don't even
Yeah,
know.
because it's
The
80
Freemasons.
something here, and
Yeah.
we're supposed to have gotten some rain.
No, it's
I ain't
climate
seeing
change is a bitch.
nothing. I ain't seeing nothing. It said thunderstorms today, but I ain't seen nothing.
who was it?
We-
Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was trying to say that climate change and the planet heating up is a good thing or something along those lines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she also said something about Jewish space lasers. So
Yeah.
She's like Sarah Palin, but nasty.
Yeah,
And peach
Sarah
cream
Palin, but worse.
dishes.
I do not understand how somebody can be that nutso and we still keep them in office.
don't forget that not the Gestapo, but the Gazpacho is coming for you.
Yep.
Oh, the gazpacho? Wait a minute. Let me rub that on me.
Have you all been picking up on how much Herschel Walker makes things up? Everybody's catching him in his lies, and now it's become this running joke, and everybody's writing outrageous things like, Herschel Walker and I were the people who found electricity back in the 1700s. It's just going around the net. Kind of nasty, but
Well,
so is he.
if the gazpacho is coming, I better get some croutons.
Yeah, gazpacho.
Maybe a
That's
little bit of
chicken.
sour cream.
Yeah. Yeah. Some cheese and sour cream and, croutons.
Did any of you come across the? Why don't we just say the dossier on Bobber about her past doings
On
as
Bobber?
a sex worker and taking money from Ted Cruz and stuff in that capacity.
Wait, she like, I don't care that she was a sex worker. Like, Ted Cruz paid her for sex?
I don't know, that was never said, but there's somebody said something about she's taking money from him, but they didn't say the intent of that money, and I don't think it matters. No, I don't care if she's a sex worker, and I don't care if she has a relationship with Ted Cruz. I do care that she's also had 2 abortions. That was the other thing in the dossier. I disagree with the fact that she now is out there saying, no, none of you else can have these things that I went through to save my ass.
Yep.
I'm so sorry. I have to go because I just got a call.
Okay,
But
and now I gotta go.
great conversation. Thank you so much.
See you, Randolph.
Okay.
Have a
Later.
good time.
Bye, Randolph.
Take care, Randolph.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is definitely something to be. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't kick her off the couch. You know what I'm saying?
I would.
I would.
She's fucking batshit.
She's too stupid. I couldn't have her in the same room with me.
Well, I didn't say I wanted to have a conversation with her.
Look. Pro
Look,
tip.
Unless she
Don't-
had duct tape over her mouth, I could not stay in the same room with her.
Look.
Well,
Pro tip. You don't stick your dick in crazy.
I always stick your dick in crazy. What's wrong with you?
No.
Because
That's the
then you
best
might
crazy.
wind up causing a baby, and then you're stuck dealing with crazy for the next 18 years.
Oh no, you got to protect yourself. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, rubbers are known to break. It happens.
And you're playing Russian roulette with your future.
Oh, I've always played Russian roulette with my future. Because who knows? I'm just saying.
I don't know. I've had enough of that. I helped
I'm
raise
just
9
saying.
kids. I don't need to be creating any.
Well, okay.
You did your time there, huh?
Yeah, I spent most of my adult life raising other people's kids. That's part of the thing I'm having real trouble adjusting to now. Is for the first time in my life, I'm not responsible for taking care of anyone else beyond my cat. And I don't know how to do things just for myself.
I get that. I get that.
Well, it's a good thing I have Sloth Girl around because left to my own devices, I have been known to forget to eat for up to 3 days.
Yeah, I've
Same,
forgotten to eat
honestly.
before.
Yeah,
I've done that.
So it's Sloth Girl's job to make sure I don't go consecutive days without eating.
and then
Eat
you're there to
something.
help her out too.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
it's a
eat.
nice arrangement.
Yeah, eat something at least once a day.
Yeah, well, that's why we had to wait until we could get 2 apartments in the same building. Because we could not live together. We couldn't share an apartment. We'd drive each other crazy. But it has to be close enough that I can walk over and check on her every day.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I wish I
And
had
it's
somebody
good to
like
have
that.
somebody.
Well, and people say about history, I have literally known her all her life. Her mother babysat for me when she was pregnant with her.
Wow.
Yeah, I know somebody like that, but I haven't seen them in a while.
I have nobody that I've known quite that long. I mean, the one that would come closest would be probably Amber. Like when we moved down to Florida, it was, before I started school, so I hadn't really made any friends back in Massachusetts. And when I started school, we moved into that house and like Amber lived 2 houses down. So I was probably like 5 or so when we moved into that house. So yeah, I've known someone that long, but no longer.
Well, since kindergarten's quite a run.
Yeah. And then I met one of my dear friends, in I think it was second grade, 2nd or 3rd grade, and like he lives in Iowa now.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, this is horrible, but you made me laugh. It doesn't work to play Russian roulette when you're OCD. I just can't leave a gun not fully loaded.
That
State.
yeah. Just yeah.
Yeah, and I really get that because, yeah, 1 or 2 empty spaces in something is going to bug me.
Uh, reverse Russian roulette have the chamber full except for one.
Yep.
I wish the Republicans would play that version.
Mm.
You would have thought that after the January 6th thing, when these people with guns were trying to break into their offices, they might have gotten the idea that these people could be dangerous and maybe we should do something about all the guns they have.
NRA money speaks more.
Yeah, but literally their own lives were on the line. And yet they somehow have the delusion that they're somehow going to be safe from this, that it's never going to hurt them.
Delusions are a very powerful thing. They probably figure, hey, it was my opponents that these people were after, not me.
Yeah, if they had actually gotten into the Senate chambers and they started shooting, I doubt most of them would be able to tell a Republican from a Democrat. And honestly, at that point, I'm betting half of them wouldn't even care.
You're not wrong.
They would be so caught up in the moment and so excited by what was going on, they really wouldn't care who they were shooting at.
Did any of you hear the new evidence that has shown up in the last day or so? There's been a long believed rumor that there were some Congress people who gave these bad guys tours of all the critical places in the Capitol building. But everybody said, well, maybe, and the people who are accused of that said, no, that never happened. Well, guess what? Somebody took video.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's cameras in every room in the Capitol. I'm sure there's security footage of everyone who's walked through.
Well, they got shots of these guys getting led around into the critical areas. They're photographing the critical areas and the critical stairways and the critical camera locations and all that stuff. They were putting together a whole briefing for their people on it. So we got some congressmen who are going to get messed around.
They were casing the joint.
Yep.
It's just a matter of, are they going to actually hold the people responsible, to any account? Is there actually going to be any consequences?
If there aren't serious consequences for this, then we can basically kiss our democracy goodbye at that point.
Nobody was allowed to be in the Capitol the day before. Okay? These guys got a special tour.
Yeah.
And if they're not supposed to be in there on the 6th either. So why were they taking them around on the 5th and then taking pictures of all this stuff? Because they knew they were going to be in there on the 6th.
Yep. Yeah, they were casing it.
Bastards.
It's a good term for him. Yeah. Fucking traitors to our country.
Yep, and Knox, I think you're right that, it's all about them keeping people divided and frightened because that's how they maintain their control.
Well, if they win in November, they won't have to worry about that anymore because they'll be in total control of everything.
Yep. It's game over.
Yeah, it is. It's too late.
Yeah.
If there's no consequences for this, if they're, able to gain power in November, then
Well, yeah, they've already been trying to, rewrite the Voter Rights Act to basically so they can determine who will be allowed to vote. And of course, everything they've been doing to make it especially difficult for low-income people to vote,
Mm-hmm.
that they're targeting the poor neighborhoods everywhere.
Closing down like poor neighborhoods and communities of color, like trying to shut down as many voting precincts as possible.
Yep.
Excuse me.
It's kind of sad, you know. I mean, that, you know, we had a good run. Like the country had a good run while it did, but you know, our democracy dies with a whimper.
And as they've said for a long time, when fascism comes to the United States, it'll come carrying a Bible wrapped in a flag. And that's what's happening right now.
And wasn't it someone had asked one of the founding fathers, so what is it like, you know, what kind of government did we end up with? And it was like, you know, a republic if you can keep it.
Yes, that was Ben Franklin. After the first Constitutional Congress being asked, what type of government have you given us?
Well, everybody has been saying for 200 some years it's an experiment.
The grand experiment, and it's about to come to its failed conclusion.
Yeah, every human society is an experiment. The only difference on this one is the scale. It's involved more people than just about any other one.
Well, yeah, because of our imperialism.
Well, look at it this way: when we completely collapse, we'll probably take the rest of the world with us.
Oh yeah, if the U.S. goes into economic collapse, it'll cause a worldwide depression. You know, every other country, their currency is basically based on the U.S. dollar. You know, some it's more obvious than others, but you know, just if the U.S. dollar suddenly lost a significant amount of value, banks in countries around the world would be going bankrupt.
Yep.
Because they're also invested in the U.S.
And yet you got fucking rich fuckwits from other countries like Rupert Murdoch, you know, and co, that they fucking, and their ilk, that, you know, they're fine with absolutely destroying the United States. You know?
Yeah. Ox is saying, Jenny, that's what happened in the 1600s. A Bible wrapped in a church flag stepped foot on these shores, and it's been downhill ever since.
I won't disagree.
Yep.
It's kind of depressing.
You know, if part of what really bothers me, outside of the absolutely horrendous lack of human compassion in what's going on right now, is that the Southern Baptist Convention is such a minority of Christianity in this country. You know, they're compared to Catholicism or Lutheranism or Presbyterianism or any of them. The Southern Baptist Convention is this tiny little group, and they're running things.
Well, and that's the other part I don't get about even the whole evangelical voting bloc. Is, yeah, they want this, you know, they want their theocracy. They want everything run as a Christian nation. But at what point are they going to realize that it may not be their particular brand of Christianity?
They're
They
too
won't realize that.
self-absorbed to think about it. You know, they just, oh, Christian nation, you know, go for that. And they just figured, like, it's obvious, like, they're the ones that are correct. So it'll be their flavor of Christianity that wins out in
They are the ones in control. The Republican Party is in control of itself anymore.
Yeah.
They respond to what the Southern Baptist Convention says to do.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That, you know, if they get it all going the way they think they want it, and the Baptists are in control, and how are the Pentecostals going to feel?
Well, they're going to try to bring a one-party, one-religion state.
Yeah, but they're not all one religion.
Doesn't mean they can't try to force it down the world's throat. That's what a dictatorship is.
No, but what I mean is all the different Christian denominations.
Yes, I know what you mean. You got to ask yourself: do they care? No, they don't. You will have to do it our way. And if you resist, we have no problems exterminating you.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong.
And the question would be, which way would be that way?
Oh, I saw this headline too, but I didn't catch what the story was. Marjorie Taylor Greene blames tampon shortage on transgender people.
Yeah, that's right, because we have to use 5 or 6 a day,
Oh yeah, transgender women always have such heavy periods.
That woman is a fucking menace.
Yes, she is.
And honestly, like there are tons of people that were assigned female at birth that don't menstruate. I'm one of them. So I don't know. Like,
well, she's right. After surgery, I had to use tampons for like 3-4 days.
ooh, wow.
That's a lot over 40 years,
Yeah, totally. Like a fraction of 1% of your time alive. Like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. Ugh.
Well, and what percentage of transgender women, for an assortment of reasons, don't get the bottom surgery?
Well, then they must be sticking them up their ass.
Yeah, I have
not
no
bad
idea
for
what the numbers
nosebleeds.
would be on that, but
Yeah, that's a good idea. Nosebleeds.
I mean, I'm just saying, like if you get a nosebleed, like it's tubular shaped, it'll fit in your nose and soaks up the blood. Like that's one use for it, But gods, I haven't used a tampon in like 8 years. Like I had sterilization surgery after my son was born, and I had an endometrial ablation, which was great for the first few years, but now like it's failed, so I need a hysterectomy. So I get spotting, not enough for a tampon, but like Freddy Krueger shredding my uterus cramps, and it can happen multiple times a month, which is not fun.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a blast.
It's totally fun. It started in January. Well, I would say it started December of 2019 was when like I started actually having serious issue with it. So pandemic, fun stuff.
Hey, Commander.
Ox, yes. It
Can you
depends
hear
on
me? I
the
can't hear
caliber.
anyone.
And entry wounds
Actually-
only. Exit wounds.
Not so much. Yeah. But no, I could see, a tampon, possibly used for that.
Oh, okay. So
Yes,
talking-
Mark, a hysterectomy will, because the issue is in my uterus. See, an endometrial ablation, they zap the inside of your uterus to destroy the endometrial lining, which is what grows up each month and then sheds when you have your menstrual cycle. What happened with mine is there's a couple of spots that weren't completely eradicated, but then there's scar tissue over top of them. So my body wants to build up that lining and shed it, but the scar tissue is blocking it. So it essentially is like trying to force that tissue through scar tissue. And that's what pain. So if they cut out my uterus, that takes the whole problem away.
Okay, looking at this up in Newsweek, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene claimed on Monday that nationwide a tampon shortage is being fueled by tampons placed in men's bathrooms for transgender people.
Okay, well,
Well-
trans men might need tampons, but still, like, fuck you. Like, there's
That's
not a lot. There's
still
not enough
not-
people.
Yeah, it's still not gonna do it.
I
It's
think-
the
I think
drugs.
it's hilarious. You know what? Another thing that I'm sure MTG is now aware of. In fact, most people wouldn't be either. There's a large number of trans women who will carry 1 or 2 tampons with them, or maybe a sanitary pad, because when you're in the bathroom and the woman next to you says, "Do you have a napkin I can borrow?" You know, and then you can help your sister.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you're not borrowing it because you sure as shit don't want it back. Give it back. But yes,
Yeah.
You
It-
can have this
it's
back
good.
at the end of the day.
Like I mean, when I
Conservation
used to go
energy.
out, I would actually keep some in my bag for the same exact reason, because not all bathrooms are equipped with
Yep.
those types of things, and
Yes,
it
I
really
understand
sucks.
that most women carry a couple spares. Oh. You with us, Commander?
Yeah. The conversation kind of changed from an area where I was once very hyper knowledgeable to something I know little about.
Well, I suppose we can go
Yeah.
back to what you're hyper knowledgeable about. I mean, that's fine.
It was about
sorry.
that whole religion thing taking over. There's actually a 2013, this is how much they know what they're doing. There's a 2013 video called God and Hitler, put out by none other than Regent University, in which they're basically what they said Hitler was doing back then, they're doing right now. First, you take over the church with the party sympathizers. You give them a new religion and a new faith in a leader and in a country. And yeah, they're not really, these people are not really going to get what they think they want.
Yeah, it's true.
Fascists always eat their own.
Well, I mean, ANCAPs are basically fascists because technically when you have no government there to curtail the excesses of the strong, you wind up with corporations being the ultimate authority on right and wrong and what's going to happen and what's not going to happen.
That's the last group you want is your moral authority.
John Stewart, in his book Earth from 2010, I know that there's not a lot of Bible fans here, but John Stewart said before we had the invisible hand to tell us right from wrong, we had Bibles. And whilst the Bible is full of some good stuff and some harmful stuff, it's certainly a lot better than Ayn Rand.
I mean, unless you're taking it literal, then I don't know, an argument
True,
can be made.
true. Taking it literally rather than figuratively and using this axiom, what would I want to have done to me and don't do to someone that I wouldn't have done to me, and just, it's a mixed bag. Immanuel Kant tried to remove all the badness from the morality. A lot of the empathetic humanisms actually stem from Kant.
Yeah.
That's why I prefer, instead of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I prefer do unto others as they would have you do unto them. It's treat
Yes.
others how they wish to be treated, as opposed to, because I might want to be treated one way and you a completely different way. And if you go with treating people the way they wish to be treated, then everybody is treated properly at that point,
True.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
True.
whole thing of treat others as you want them to treat you really falls apart when you get into autistics and introverts. Because for the most part, I would rather people just didn't pay any attention and basically didn't even acknowledge I was there. But if I do that to other people, they think I'm being rude and antisocial.
I like to follow the 2 commandments: be excellent to each other and party on.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, just don't be a dick, like it's a good rule to live by.
Hey, why don't we write a set of of modern day commandments?
Somebody was asking about
party on, like good stuff.
somebody was asking about that on Twitter, that if you could inscribe a couple of laws into stone for to be the laws forever. It's like, yeah, I just had 2. Don't be a dick, help other people.
Honestly, just, one for me, and that is, treat others how they wish to be treated. Because if you were forced to follow that, then everybody should be at like that bare minimum,
Well, I can understand the whole treat others as you wish to be treated if you don't know how the other person wants to be treated. If
Yeah.
it's like a complete stranger, I can understand that as a general guide. But until you get to, and once you get to know them, it does kind of falls apart.
Well, like I say, I can understand, as a general rule, it sounds real good. I just know that in my specific instance, it doesn't work out well. So I have to, work a little more to figure out, what's this person, more likely to want.
It's what you call a rule of thumb. In other words, it's not necessarily accurate in all cases.
Do you know where the expression rule of thumb comes from?
Oh, I was just about to get into that.
Actually, I
Go
don't
on.
know. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kitty.
So the rule of thumb comes back to when it was legal for a man to beat his wife so long as the stick he used was no bigger than his thumb.
Yeah, interesting.
Gotta
that
love
in-
misogyny.
Is that in
It's been around for
thickness or
1,000 years.
is that in thickness or in length?
Thickness.
Yeah.
Thickness. Okay.
So, while if you were to go with a thinner one, it would hurt more and be more likely to like cut the skin, like a whip. With a thicker one, you could do quite a bit of damage. And like you were allowed to beat your wife as long as, it would basically be something kind of like this, right here. That would probably be about the thickest you would be able to go as far as something. You wouldn't be able to use the end, obviously, but because it's a little bit bigger than my thumb, but a man's thumb would be bigger than mine. So yeah, this like 1-inch dowel, you would be able to beat your wife with that.
Sadly, I think North Carolina or South Carolina. I remember taking political science course, and the professor mentioned that you can still beat your wife on the steps of a courthouse in one of those states.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Which is rather sad. And the rule of thumb thing, now that's sad.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's like all the stuff in the Bible about how to treat your slaves. Well, you couldn't just have a rule that you shouldn't own other people, but
Nope.
it went into that it's okay to beat them as long as they don't die within the first couple of days.
Yeah.
And there's another commandment that if you beat them and their tooth comes out, they get to go free. And if you break a bone, they get to go free. But
Yep.
try not owning other people as far as I am concerned.
Yep.
That's what I mean by the Bible's got some good stuff and it's got some crap.
Well, yeah, like a lot of the crap is in Leviticus, where you have a woman, and if she gets sexually assaulted, then she is not betrothed. If she is betrothed, I mean, she's already someone else's property. Her getting sexually assaulted, it's her fault. She's going to be put to death. But if she's single and she's sexually assaulted, then the rapist pays the father a fine and has to marry her and can't divorce her. So then she's forced to be married to and bear children for her rapist.
Like I said, it has crap in it.
Yeah, well, you know,
Just goes,
if you want to keep the image of the all-loving God, you've got to do some serious cherry picking around the crap.
yeah. No, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Christian God does not exist. Now, I can't make a positive assertion for no gods existing ever, but that particular God, I am fairly confident does not exist in so far as like no loving, all powerful, all knowing God would allow things to play out the way that they have, you know?
Well, that's the position I take. I can't say that no gods exist. I definitely can say that the God of the Bible doesn't exist because he is self-contradictory.
Exactly.
Well, I can say that there's no gods at all because my belief of that is just as 100% valid as their belief that there is one.
Mm-hmm.
Or
No,
anybody's belief
absolutely.
that there may be one.
Absolutely.
So
It's just,
there's
you
no
know,
damn
you would have like a burden of proof there, like since you're making a more positive assertion.
No,
Whereas
I don't. It's pure belief. There is no proof possible or necessary. There is no God. Period. That's
It's
my belief.
something that cannot be falsified or proven, therefore, scientifically. Just ignore it and realize that religion is mostly people's philosophy and opinions.
it's also incredibly toxic.
I remember what Thomas Paine had to say in his Age of Reason, and it's actually pretty good. And he said, true religion is learning about the world and how it works and making the world better for your fellow man. He dispensed with belief in any creed of any church, and I was actually impressed how far he stripped everything down. It's a really good book, Age of Reason.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable.
I've heard it referenced. I haven't read it myself. Access South Carolina only on Sunday. I think that was in reference to beating your wife at the Capitol.
By the way, I think it was in South Carolina yesterday in our elections, primaries. One of the people who won is an election denier. So they're actually going to
Lovely.
possibly
Well,
have
and we
somebody
seem
in
to be getting
control
more
of
and more.
election who is an election denier.
As the primaries go on, we seem to be getting more and more QAnon subscribers that will be running for office.
Let's just hope that they lose in the general.
Yep.
So when do we get a Democrat who's basically Trump and he's the better option?
I mean,
Okay, I have to step away for a moment.
honestly, that would be like if Bezos or Musk ran, because ultimately, you know, both of them are conservative. I mean, they might be like socially liberal a little bit insofar as like they're not going to try to kill gay people, you know, or outlaw abortion. But when it comes to like fiscal policy and financially, like they're pro corporate. And so and anti-union, so things won't get better for the working class. They'll just get worse.
No, I mean, I'm expecting pretty much all of Trump's policies down the line, but just with a D next to the name.
I don't think that would necessarily happen.
I do.
No, if he had a D next to his name, if you took Donald Trump and you changed nothing else about his disgusting behavior or what he accomplished, all the preachers who support him would call him the Antichrist. Now, I played pareidolia with the Bible. The Bible is full of a lot of crap, but the character in the book of Daniel that the Christians think is a forerunner of the Antichrist, the prophet Daniel in the original Hebrew uses the word Karen to describe him. Not kidding. Karen, and a Karen is a unholy trumpet. Like a shofar is a holy trumpet, whilst a Karen is an unholy trumpet, a little trumpet, for you will. Dun dun dun. His son-in-law Jared used to own 666 Fifth Avenue. Trump has paintings of Apollo in his living room in Manhattan. That's an angel of the bottomless pit from Revelations 9:11. And on August 21st, 2019, Trump compared himself to the King of Israel and the second coming of God on Twitter. The haftarah for that week was Isaiah 40, where it's, "Who shall you compare me to? In idol I make the kings of the earth as emptiness, and the rulers of the earth come to nothing." Then on March 6, 2021, the day before Trump spoke at CPAC and everyone was worshiping his golden Trump statue, all of Israel read the Parsha about the golden calf. And thing is, the Haftorah readings and the Torah readings are tied to the Jewish calendar. So what you read was decided back about 2,500 years ago. And if Trump was a Democrat, his supporters would have noticed that. But it's all hypocrisy and lies.
I
They
couldn't
just have
believe
different
they had.
supporters.
I couldn't believe they had a literal golden idol of him, and his followers did not connect that to the Bible verse.
And it's connected to the Parsha that all of Israel read. And I mean all of it. The Reforms and Conservatives have what's known as a triannual cycle. Each Parsha is chopped up into thirds, whilst the Orthodox read the entire Parsha. There's 52 Parsha. And the triannual cycle actually wound up lining up with you're reading about the golden calf as these douchebags are worshiping a golden Trump statue. And Trump was sworn in on January 20th, 2017. That was a Shabbat. And I remember reading the first Parsha in the book of Exodus. That was the schedule, and it was again conservative Judaism, so it's the triennial cycle, and we still had, and there arose a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. Now, since you can actually check back with the calendar to see if anyone else was sworn in on a Shabbat on that day, on the Jewish calendar, secular calendar, whatever, no one had. I'm reading too much into it, but there's a lot of these little coincidences that if Trump was a Democrat, his followers would notice. Like the second anniversary of Trump's King of Israel tweet. He was in Coleman, Alabama, a town founded by someone who in Prussia who was a general in a failed coup attempt. Coleman, Alabama is the ass end of nowhere. And again, the connection to a failed German general who's participated in a coup attempt. And he had David Icke there. Now, David Icke compared himself to God in the early 90s. And also, you had Congressman, or was he a Senator, Mo Brooks, announcing the second coming of Trump. The Christians freaked out when the Beatles said that they were bigger than JC and started burning Beatles records. But not this asshole.
Yeah, the
Yep.
the Republicans
You're right.
the Republicans would be pointing all of this out, and if we had somebody just like Trump down the line running as a Democrat, the Democrats would be ignoring all of those negative aspects of the man, and because he's not as bad as the next guy, who's whoever's worse in the Republican camp.
Sadly, you're probably right. But if you had a Democrat just as bad as Trump, I'd stay home.
Well, that makes you part of the problem, because then the Republicans worse wins.
I don't think there's anyone just as bad as Trump or even worse that could possibly run.
Don't hold your breath.
Well, I think that Elon Musk has been testing the waters.
Elon Musk is a foreign citizen. He cannot run for president. He was born in South Africa.
That's right. He is disqualified. Fortunately.
He can size up as much as he wants.
And there was emails last November to all of his engineers saying, you need to get Starship up and running because I'm going to lose my shirt with Starlink if we don't basically get another order of magnitude of launch efficiency. Anyone who has tried to do what he's doing with Starlink has gone belly up. And he's run out of the federal money, the grants, and probably this year or next year, SpaceX and Tesla, it's all going to come crashing down.
Elon Musk having money problems. Let me get out the smallest violin here.
Well, Elon Musk is all about building illusions. He makes a company look like it's profitable so that he can sell it off, and then they find out once they've bought it that it's not nearly half of what he bragged it to be. That's the way he made his money in the first place.
2% of the cars, and somehow worth all the other car companies combined.
And the highest recall rate of any car ever manufactured.
Did not know that about Teslas being with a recall rate.
Yeah, some of it's minor things, some of it's bigger things. In one case, it was the. Huh?
I was all ready to be a supporter of Tesla and to even buy one if I had the cash. But now, as I'm finding out, I would not. I wouldn't touch one, and I don't want to see one on the road. I want them all removed from the road. That the command decisions of the computer, of the processor, are overriding the driver, even when it's not turned on.
Yeah,
that's not good.
No, that's not.
I've seen videos of the self-driving Tesla. The computer couldn't recognize an overturned dump truck.
You kind of want that the opposite way, where the user can override the computer.
Exactly.
Well, that's how it was designed.
Yeah. Well, they've had recalls on everything from the door handles breaking off to the engines just spontaneously starting on fire while they were charging.
Oh, that's fun.
As the batteries get older, they grow dendrites, and the possibility of having battery explosions increases.
That's with lithium batteries, yeah.
Well, and they were designed by people who apparently have never lived outside of California. The cars are just hideously designed for, any place that gets snow, any place that gets below freezing temperatures, they just can't handle it.
Dendrites, by the way, are what caused. Remember when Toyota had all the problems with the unexpected acceleration? Dendrites were the cause.
Oh, is that what?
Uh-huh.
They were discharging the battery too fast.
No, they were fucking up the gas pedal. It was a drive-by-wire car, and that basically just works on a resistor plate. inside the gas pedal assembly, and it was growing dendrites and shorting things out, and boom, it accelerates.
Basically, making that connection to accelerate.
For you guys out in the chat, if that you don't know what that is, certain electrical parts, because of the electricity in them and the nature of things like electrolysis and how atoms behave and stuff like that, will actually grow appendages to themselves, and they're called dendrites because they're like a dendrite on a nerve cell or something like that, and they will grow and they will cause all kinds of fucking trouble. That's one of the reasons that you see, if you ever look in a car computer, you'll see that it is completely sealed with a plasticky resin substance, because that will help prevent the dendrites from growing. And a part that they didn't do it to was the gas pedal, and you're fucked.
Yeah, and Ox, yeah, I will grant that SpaceX has accomplished some really impressive stuff. Musk has some very competent, talented people working for him.
Ox, that's not fair to say. If NASA decided that's what they wanted to do, they would accomplish it. They're no smarter or dumber than Elon Musk's people.
Well, yeah, especially when you consider the whole Apollo program and the computer technology they had doing that the majority of the calculations were just done with pencil and paper.
By Poppy Northcutt, well, among others, who's on Twitter.
And the computers back then, my mom was told back in the mid 60s, the computer she worked on in college cost the college $500 an hour to operate.
Yep.
That sounds cheap.
I had read that for the Apollo program, the computer in the Apollo command module had about the power of a Commodore 64. And the ground control...
I think it was
less than that.
Was it an 8-bit machine? I think that their stuff was 4 or 6-bit, something like that.
Yeah, the ground control computer that NASA had that took up basically the space in my entire apartment had about the power of a first-generation Pentium.
Oh, no. No,
well, that's what I had read.
They've talked about the all of computing power in all of NASA on the Apollo project was roughly just less than your cell phone.
Well, yeah, I think that's still in line with the first generation Pentium, is about what you get in a cell phone now.
Actually, I think at least my cell phone, first generation Pentium was less. And the computer on the Apollo craft itself, they used something called hard wiring, where they actually took magnets and they weaved wires around the magnets, and that's how they stored the data.
I didn't hear about the magnets thing. I know a lot of the computer programming was, hard wiring that they had to physically plug the cables.
You know how
into
you have
different
like
sockets.
You know what a choke is, right?
It's how they built binary or on-off switches. Let's say, I don't want to call it binary. They had very thin copper wires, a human hair type thickness, and they would intersect in pairs at 90-degree angles, and there would be two pair of those per vertice, and around the vertice was a little toroid of a magnetic toroid, which is a donut. And when they send voltage down, the toroid would flip its position and create a new pathway, so therefore a new instruction. And these memory modules, like a a half a K one would be like practically the size of a Bible. It was just, they were huge comparatively to what we have now. They were planetary compared to what we have now.
All right, the Apollo computer had 32,768 bits of RAM memory and 72 kilobytes of read-only memory.
32,000 bits divided
Yeah.
8. That's 4. So 4K.
Yep.
Yep.
And Ox is saying the Apollo 11 moon landing guidance computer had a clock speed of just over 1 megahertz.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that fast.
And they had to prioritize tasks in order to make it work.
It's fun. It practically was analog computers. Oh gosh, they've reconstructed. They have all the tapes of all the audio and all the computing. That was going up and back, and they have reassembled that into a demonstration that can run the entire mission of Apollo 11 from the moment of launch all the way to and back. They can replay it, simulate it basically.
And Lavender Lady has complete recordings of all of that if anybody wants them.
Oh, really? I didn't know that, Diana. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. She's collected basically the audio from all of the Apollo missions.
Well, she's Miss Apollo herself, so.
Yep.
Okay, so calculator.
And I understand that fascination. That people often ask, what's the first news event you remember as a child? And that's I watched a man walk on the moon the day after my 5th birthday.
My earliest was Bay of Pigs. Oh, that's so hard to say.
Yeah, it sucks that it was a political thing like that.
But I was born the same year as the Challenger disaster.
Oh gosh.
And then the first news story that I really remember, because my parents didn't really let me watch the news when I was little. I think it was JonBenet Ramsey, her disappearance.
Yeah, that was a huge thing that went on for months.
Great to have you,
Yeah.
Commander.
Let's see here. Oh, well, calculators have more memory than the Apollo. New calculator, new RAM chips, is only 48 kilobytes, whereas Apollo has 4.
Okay, well, I think this might be a good time for me to wrap this up today.
All right.
Especially as I have just passed the mark of being 30 hours without sleep.
Jesus, girl,
Hey.
what the hell? Get some
It
rest.
just didn't work last night. I didn't sleep. So these things happen to me. It's a good thing that I didn't need to go out today for anything.
Yeah, I've had those days.
So, anybody have anything they want to plug before we go?
Well, I'll be on Oxic Mask or Talk Bees show. What is it? Oxic
However it's pronounced.
Oxic transculinity. Is that it?
something like that.
Something
Tomorrow
like that.
at 9:00 Eastern.
Okay, yeah, that's tonight.
And then
I thought Mondays was when they did the Oxic transculinity.
Yeah, that's the Monday show. She does another show Wednesday
I think
night.
it's open mic tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think.
yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I
was
didn't
thinking.
see the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it yesterday or Monday or. Because they missed it this week.
Yeah, I was confused.
It's okay.
I know she was on Monday, but
I didn't see it.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I'm going in looking at my list, and I haven't seen him post a link yet for a show tonight.
Is it usually
But-
Wednesday or is it Thursday?
No, it's Monday, Wednesday
Yeah,
for his streams.
Okay.
yeah, Beck does Monday and Wednesday.
I don't know why I can never remember Beck's showtimes.
I get confused a lot, especially with the different people I watch. Of getting confused who's which day.
I'm just on a mission of genocide right now. So there's a hole in the screen to the back porch, and for whatever reason, whenever we open up the sliding glass door to let the dog in or out, like flies just fucking make a beeline. And this is a fucking tennis racket that zaps them.
Oh yeah,
I
runs
love
on
those.
battery.
Oh, yeah.
This is
I have-
amazing.
Yeah, I have one right next to me.
Because
I've
I hate
seen those.
I fly on
do
my.
they really work?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
They depends on the bug. The tougher the skin of the bug, the less they work.
But for
I think-
common houseflies, they're fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
I've
they
taken a full.
explode. They explode mosquitoes. It's great.
And you hear them go.
I've
Okay,
I've
do-
taken a full-grown cockroach with one of those.
Do they actually, do something more than just swatting them with a regular swatter does?
Yes.
Yes. Here, I've got a fly corpse on here.
They zap and
There's a
sometimes
button,
explode and
and-
burn.
Yeah, it's basically like it like you push the button and it like fries the bug.
If you got a Harbor Freight in your neighborhood somewhere, folks, you can buy those for under $5.
Or
Nice.
Walmart. You can get it at Walmart.
Walmart has them too.
Yep. I hate
Yeah.
flies. I hate house flies. They fly on my face and like they're
I think
fucking
I need
awful.
to. I actually
If,
think I need
if
to
you
get a
have
new
a choice,
one.
get it at Harbor Freight. Walmart is a horrible
obviously.
company. Harbor Freight is actually a pretty good company for the most
But
part.
I don't believe I have Harbor Freight here in Florida. So Walmart it is.
Well,
There
when-
are Harbor Freights in Florida.
Really? I've never
Yes.
Yep,
seen one.
I think they've got them in every state, just a matter of if they're in your city. But at the beginning of the pandemic, could not get the N95 masks or the nitrile gloves at Harbor Freight because the company had made the decision to donate their entire warehouse, all of their warehouse stock in every state to the local hospitals.
Hey, good for them. Like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Ha! Gotcha, bastard.
Looks like there are 3 in Orlando.
Okay. I'll just have to go looking. But here we go. I caught one. Come on.
There, I
Okay.
forget which
Yep.
kind of bug it is. I think it was a Japanese
There we
beetle.
go.
Those nasty things that eat all your veggies. Those you pretty much got to just let fall on the screen and turn it on and cook them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I just cooked this thing.
Yeah, it takes quite a while.
There
for
we
it
go.
To stop smoking and
And like even if it doesn't kill them instantly, like even if you just clip them, they'll usually then fall down to the ground where you can just smush them.
yeah.
What I've been doing is after I zap the bug, I stick it in a little container and then toss it in my compost.
Okay. Stock check. Ox, are you invested in them?
So
And we're-
yeah.
Are we
I'm-
closing
I'm
this
on-
up?
Yes,
Yeah.
we were. Sorry.
Yeah.
I need to get back to my genocide of houseflies because bugs can live outside. I don't mind. Like there's a whole bunch of daddy longlegs that live right outside my sliding glass door, right in the corner. I leave them be. They don't bother me. It's the freaking houseflies. And because, they get on the back porch, then as soon as the door opens to let the dog in, like they'll just bum rush the house and drives me crazy.
Ox, did you know that only 4% of the stock market is owned by average citizens?
Okay, well, with that, Skits Crasher, you just come in. We're just wrapping up. Skits has been being especially generous to me. Been sending me a bit on PayPal just about every month now.
Aw.
That's really sweet of you there, Skits.
Yes, thank you for helping support Purple.
Burp to dirt.
So, yeah, and with that in mind, I'd just like to, thank all of my supporters. Jyuni the Apostate, Ox and Robert X are both Patreon supporters and for, moderating the chat for us. Mark Caesar, Diana the Lavender Lady, Greg Hartwick, and Dog.
Yeah, Dan will
Yeah.
probably be doing a live stream later today.
Okay. So,
If she does, then I will probably be there because I'm just going to be sewing. So it'd be nice to have some company.
she's doing hers on Wednesdays now?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Since
thought she had decided to go to Thursday.
Well, she had to switch it because of the dialysis was getting in the way.
Yeah, I know she was fudging with her schedule and trying to figure out which was the best day for her.
Yeah, so far it seems Sundays and Wednesdays have been the days.
Okay.
Unless she's changed it again on me.
Goodbye, chat. Love you guys very much.
Yep. Bye-bye, all.
Bye everyone.